Neocolonialism, Israel, Balkanization, Pan-nationalism. Colonialism was the means with which the West, the global minority, dominated the global majority for centuries. But besides being a method, it was also a political, social, and religious ideology that enforced and perpetuated colonialism. Whether political, social, or religious, it was about the naked use of power, and that naked use of power became the hallmark of their divine favor. The West did not negotiate, they did not compromise, and did not spare. They came like biblical locusts and consumed everything our societies had, our cultures, our histories, and our bodies. This ideology of naked power at the heart of the colonial West, in relation with the rest of the world, elevated what they thought of themselves, and it became the heart of what would be the global system of structures that maintain white supremacy that is the West. Like every supremacist ideology, it is a galvanizing but brittle force. So what was the West to do when the world rebelled against colonialism? How could the West, under neocolonialism, reassert their supremacy without the ability to wield power nakedly? Supremacy of any kind requires two things: the elevation of one group and the devaluation of all others. It is not one or the other, both are part of a supremacist toolkit, but which they focus on more depends on the environment they are in. Under colonialism, the West sought to openly elevate itself above the global majority at the point of a gun. Once more people had guns, that ceased to be feasible, so they switched their focus to devaluing all other cultures. Under neocolonialism, the way the West devalues or reduces the importance of all other groups is by keeping them divided so they are not allowed to amass power, because the West cannot dominate the world. But if it breaks it up into smaller manageable pieces, that they think is feasible. Balkanization is the fragmentation of a region or state into smaller, often hostile and dependent units, typically driven by ethnic, cultural, or religious conflict. The West wants the entire world balkanized. It pretends to care about one group over the other here and there, but ultimately it wants the only place not to be balkanized to be the West. A country that brings this into clarity like no other in the West is Israel. Even the past couple of decades, we can see how the West has systematically continued the balkanization of West Asia to facilitate the existence of the white supremacist apartheid state that is Israel. And people in the West prefer to think of it as a Jewish supremacist state. Like that would be much better. But still, they think of it as a Jewish supremacist state so they can fit it into some narrative of Western redemption after the Holocaust by conveniently ignoring that there are non-white Jews. I'm from Eritrea. My neighboring country is Ethiopia, and we both countries have a lot of African Jewish people. I've known a lot of Arab Jewish people, and when they go to Israel, they are third-class citizens who are spat upon, discriminated against, and abused. It is the same for people who are Jewish of all other ethnicities. In Israel, being Jewish only matters if you also happen to be white. Even though it is obviously a white supremacist state, in the era of neocolonialism, they cannot wield power so nakedly as to go to a brown land and just call it a white settler colony. So while Israel accepts white Jewish people from around the West and attempts to create one identity, one people, one culture, they deny that to everyone else around them. They pit one sect against the other, one minor ethnic group against another, one nation against another, so the only place of stability is Israel. They benefit from any conflict between other groups in the region. The spreading of hate and division is their only ideology. Everything else is a pretense. When you are the only place that is stable, you will be the only place that can maintain healthy societal standards for living. That becomes the new way of justifying your supremacy, in this case your white supremacy. I am often confused by many white people in Western countries who look at Israel horrified by its actions. Indeed, most white people I know in 2026 considered an apartheid state. But what they don't see and refuse to acknowledge is that the story of Israel is the story of the entire West. And it's not its history, but its present. Nowhere is that as naked as it is in West Asia with Israel. In the days of cameras and internet, it gets difficult to commit genocide without people noticing. So they turn the world upside down to force a logic where there is none. They want you to believe these brown people in Palestine, in Syria, and Lebanon, and throughout West Asia that they are murdering by the thousands directly, and the tens of thousands indirectly every year are the villains. They want you to believe that the thousands of Palestinian prisoners that they sexually abuse are the monsters. They want you to believe that the women and children you see starving and dying in Gaza and the West Bank are monsters. They want you to believe that they are surrounded by religious fanatics that can't see reason when they are a hostile white supremacist theocracy. They want you to think that the tears of everyone in West Asia are false, that their despair has nothing to do with them, while they talk about conquering everything from the Nile to the Euphrates. They have invaded 7 countries in a couple of decades, and they want you to believe that Iran is a threat to stability in the region. I think this is why those of us in the global majority have such an easy time seeing through the lies, because we have all been at West Asia. We have all been lied about what has been done to us. They came to Africa as slavers and colonizers and called us savages, enslaved our people to build a new world while calling us lazy and unintelligent. They came to the Americas and committed the largest campaign of genocide to ever exist, an erasure of history so complete it will always be one of the greatest tragedies of history. And so Americans and Canadians look around at the native mass grave and ruin that is their nations and sleep unbothered. They came to China and India, 2 of the great civilizations, and they saw no beauty, culture, or history. They saw slaves, consumers, and a culture they consider barbaric. So we in the global majority have an easy time seeing through Western lies about Israel and Western Asia. Nothing Israel is doing has not been done to the rest of us at the hands of the collective West. But that is the simplicity of the system the West wants to uphold. While to liberate ourselves, we have to work with all the other people being oppressed. To subjugate us, they only have to keep us divided. You can see it on how Western countries always pit the non-dominant, non-white population against each other, even pretending to elevate one over the other just to ultimately demean both. In America, the white supremacist structure spends half its time making sure that black and brown people don't become a collective. They divide Africans and African Americans, Afro-Latinos and Latinos, African Muslims and Middle Eastern Muslims, Middle Eastern Christians and Middle Eastern Muslims, and every other division you can imagine. They inflame or create every division, with the only goal being that people don't unify to the point that they can challenge the white supremacist power structure. Because the West benefits from all division amongst the global majority, we must meet the simplicity of their hateful and divisive culture with the profoundness of love and community we nurture amongst ourselves. We must meet their system of disruption by creating systems of cohesion. This is why, in response to Western aggression, pan-nationalistic movements arose around the world. These ideologies and political actions seek to unite people across traditional state boundaries based on shared ethnic, cultural, linguistic, or historical bonds, such as Pan-Africanism and Pan-Arabism. As opposed to nationalist movements that divide people by groups, these movements seek to form a larger consolidated state or regional bloc. They try to create a more cohesive identity that is not as easy for the West to balkanize. This has to be the developmental direction of us in the global majority, to first end the system of white supremacy that is currently throttling the world, but also to make sure another supremacist power structure does not take over. So love your brothers and sisters as an act of solidarity and rebellion. Love them when they don't look exactly like you, when they don't sound exactly like you, when they are not you. We must meet the Western supremacist idea of individuality that is a pretty packaging for the atomization of society with community building.